Andrew Machi, thank you so much. What an amazing presentation. And, you know, I'm delighted that there's this number of people on this call, and I know it's being recorded because I can see everyone on the screen, and that's lovely because, you know, connecting with people is really important for me. And I've actually bought this hat just to take it off because I think Eric mentioned that. And first of all, I just wanted to take my hat off. So there it is. to everyone actually in this forum. I'm genuinely grateful. You know, I think the work that everyone on this call and all the other invitees and others as well have done have really progressed coaching and coaching psychology and executive coaching. And a lot of my heroes, including Richard, are on this call. And it was just such a wonderful moment to receive the invitation to join this. So thank you so much, Richard, Alicia, Sharon, for organizing all of these. It's just been amazing. And I feel very grateful to be here. So why am I talking about culturally appropriate frameworks? I do think there's a personal element to this because I was born in Beirut, Lebanon, in the Middle East. My mother was Japanese. My father was Belgian. I lived in Lebanon for the first 25 years of my life. I've lived in the UK for the next 25 years of my life. I'm on a Spanish island at the moment. So I feel personally a little bit diverse from that perspective. I speak a few languages as well. So this is personally quite important for me, this idea of being inclusive. And again, very grateful to this forum. It's 3 a.m. for me here, 3:30 a.m. But I really appreciate the positive intention of varying the times so that people all over the world can feel welcome and included. And also that you're asking me to talk about a topic which is coaching in Islamic contexts. I've been told at some conferences that that's too niche. People have said, sorry, Christian, that's a very niche topic. Not everybody's going to be interested. However, I hope I'm going to make it relevant for everyone. And I'd like it to be a little bit interactive as well. So as reluctant as I am to not be able to see everyone, I am going to share a few slides. But because relationship is so important for me, I've hand-drawn most of these slides. And I've hand-drawn them for this presentation, most of them. So I've taken some time to think about this. If I've drawn the logo wrong, please don't sue me. It's the intention is positive. And Richard, yes, it's series 1, episode 3, and I'm loving the series. I hope there'll be further series. I'll mention a little bit about research at the end, but for the most part, I just want to share a kind of a case study of the idea of developing a culturally appropriate coaching framework. So I'm very fortunate to have been able to work with a wonderful colleague. She was president of an ICF chapter in Kuwait. Her name's Raja Allaho. She's a practicing Muslim. She's an outstanding executive coach, one of the leading executive coaches in the region. I was speaking at a conference there, and I was talking about what I refer to as a coaching way of being. I was saying, look, coaching essentially is just a very human way of interacting. And I was kind of talking about not competencies, but how is it? How does a coach show up? And what is it that allows a coach to build relationships? And Raja, who had organized that conference, came to me afterwards and she said, you know, everything you've been talking about, the coach's way of being, it's so connected to the Islamic way of thinking. And that's where this idea of writing a book together came up. And as we were writing the book, this theory emerged. And this one has some of the Arabic words attached to it. But I've drawn a version that I'd like to talk through. And then I'd like to engage you a little bit with the thinking, because I think this is probably the first coaching framework that does not have goals in it at all. So this is a coaching framework that, as we designed it, it emerged that it doesn't have goals in it. We've called the framework Irshad coaching, and there's a book about this, and maybe we can put in the chat the book that we wrote. It's called, Coaching in Islamic Culture. it gives all of the kind of the foundational thinking of how the model that we developed is based on, and this is why I love the term wisdom weavers. I'm passionate about how do we connect with wisdom that is already here in our cultures, in our countries, in our societies. So this idea of wisdom weaving has really resonated with me. And, you know, we do have in all cultures and on all places, incredible wisdom. And I wanted to make sure that the coaching endeavor respected that wisdom of the individual and the society and the group. So the first step was the word coaching. The word coaching doesn't translate very well into Arabic. So we had to identify another word. The word we picked is the word Ershad. And the word Ershad appears 19 times in the Noble Quran. And Ershad is a kind of a type of a guidance. It means kind of guidance towards the right path. But we've taken that term to mean self-guidance towards a correct path. And here's the hand-drawn version of it, just so I can give you an overview, but then I do want you to just take a moment to get involved in it. Around the outside, we're saying there's some conditions that need to be present before the coaching can even start. And this hopefully will resonate with all of us, but the idea of mutual respect and mutual trust needing to be in place even before we start. And this is why I'm so appreciating this opportunity to talk about this, because I think there's a risk when we're coaching, as we've been saying, difference. There's a risk that we could start off with a disrespectful view of that difference. So this is really crucial, trust and respect being in place. And part of that respect is the respect to allow people to be coached within a worldview that they adhere to, a belief system or worldview that's important to them. Now, I'm very grateful to Case Western for many things, but particularly the coaching work, but also the appreciative inquiry. So we actually have built in some positive psychology, some positive organizational scholarship into this model. So our model starts with a discovery stage. And that's really, tell me about you. And because in Islam, but also in Arab culture more generally, who you are and who you're related to is incredibly important. I would argue it would be disrespectful to get started in a coaching conversation just saying, hey, what's the goal? What is it you want to achieve? You don't know me. You don't know who I am. You don't know where I'm from. So unusually in this model, we would ask the coachee about themselves, but we would expect the coach to share who they are as well. We don't use the word coach and coachee. We use the word facilitator, and we use the word learner, because again, in Arabic, the words coach and coachee don't exist. So we picked facilitator of the learning, and the learner is the person who's talking this through. So after discovery, we move on to intention. This isn't the goal. We're not interested in the goal. We're interested in a positive intention. And this is to do with the religious belief that people are judged on their intention. And I know Peter Hawkins isn't on this live, and I was worried he would be, because he's often said intention, just positive intentions might not be helpful, but this model actually addresses that. So at this stage, we're talking about intention. Then we move on to pathways. This is tied to the work from University of Kansas, hope theory. But this is the idea of, once you're clear about your intention, what are the possible pathways that would move you closer to that positive intention? I think the biggest contribution of our model is what's in the middle there. We call it the alignment wheel. So when we've got pathways, the next question is, how are those pathways aligned to important relationships? And this ties so much to what we've been talking about in episode 1 and 2 of our of our series. it's actually, I think, counteracting maybe a Western tendency to be quite individualistic in our coaching. And I know I'm being very simplistic here, but essentially the way I've seen the coaching development has been, what is it you want? What are you going to do? Go for it. And this model builds into the process. So it's not an optional part of the model, is now let's reflect, if that's the pathway you're going to pursue, how does that impact on important relationships that you have? And this is where the learner would explore. And one of these is to do with faith. And of course, in the Islamic version, it would be to think about how would pursuing this pathway impact on my relationship with God. And there's relationship with the universe. There's relationship with important people in one's life, family members, people in your community, people in your professional settings, but also how does pursuing that pathway, what's the relationship with your deeply held principles, values? So that alignment wheel is part of the model. And then we move into, and this is important, what's the effort needed to, bring your intention into everyday life? So what's the effort needed to live by your positive intention is the final phase of our process. And the enormous feedback we had, and I've had feedback from many of the people who are members of this Wisdom Weavers group, was, Christian, a lot of the things you're saying, they're not just specifically about Islam. And that was a real light bulb moment for me, because as I was working with the wonderful Raja, we were writing a book about coaching in Islamic culture. And it came from the fact that we were getting feedback from colleagues in the Gulf region, in the Middle East, that some of the Western models were not, it wasn't that they weren't helping, that sometimes they were getting in the way of, the relationship they had with people and with their faith. But Raja from the outset was saying, Christian, this isn't about coaching for Muslims. She was saying, maybe there's some way that we can share this with wisdom more broadly. So we then developed the model to this, what we call coaching for alignment. So as I say, we start with discovery, but I wonder if it's appropriate to ask you, is it okay to ask people on this call just a question? Would it be okay if I asked you to reflect on your positive intention as professionals? And if it's okay with everyone, it would be lovely if you could type in the chat box what your positive intention is, because it would be lovely to have some examples. And we've used this model in Africa, in the Middle East, in Southeast Asia, in London. And it's an interesting question to ask people who are used to more traditional Western coaching models, because sometimes people say to me, my intention is to become, deputy vice chancellor, or my intention is to become CEO or regional manager. But what we mean by intention is what's behind that. What's your positive intention for wanting to be a general manager? So is it all right to ask people just to type in the chat your positive intentions? Thank you, Carrie. Facilitate connection, build community. Exactly. I love that. So that would be an example of positive intention. Thank you, Richard. Free people to pursue their dreams. I love that. Create more resonant, caring relationships. Give value to those around me. Francis, thank you. Compassionately leading. Margaret, everyone realizing their full potential. Isn't this the beautiful stuff? Isn't this the stuff? And the argument would be that that positive intention is usually the thing that's motivating and driving us anyway. And so there's this one level of alignment, which is alignment between that thing that drives us and our everyday behavior. So that's one level of alignment. Thank you so much, everyone, for this. Resonance, Marjorie says, more sustainable and human world. Thank you, Michael. Be and help others be more vibrantly alive. So this is what I've noticed when we use this model at this point, and this has happened after the discovery, which is that relationship building. But now we're into what is it that you're about? We never talk about goals. There's no talk about goals here. It probably comes a little bit closer to talking about goals, but we're still not talking about goals. We're saying, if that's what it's about, if it's about making the world more human, what are the pathways that are available to you? And here we want to allow people to be as creative as possible. No self-censoring, neither, oh, but that won't be, I won't be able to do that, or society won't want me to do that. Here we want to be incredibly creative because we tell the learner there's going to be an opportunity to make sure it is aligned. So in our coaching for alignment model, which isn't specific to any particular group, we've adapted this to say, what we would then ask is, think about whichever pathway you've picked that helps you towards that intention, how does that align with your values, your beliefs, you? But also that key question we've already talked about, what impact does you pursuing that pathway have on the ecosystem or the environment? And what impact does it have on important relationships in your lives? One of the things I've loved about working in the Gulf region, in the Middle East, has been that family comes first. You know, I've had Western expatriate coaches complain to me. They said, you know what the issue is in my organization? They're like, people here, they put family first. If there's a family thing going on, they'll just pack up, they'll go home. I'm thinking, wow, what a blessing. How wonderful is that? So this is really building that in to say, let's consider, if I pursue that pathway, what impact will it have on important relationships in your life? And it's for the learner to tell us what those important relationships are. We wouldn't say, but if for the learner, family is important, if they think, you know, one of the most beautiful things I've had about intention, one person said, my intention is to make my children proud of me. That was beautiful. I just thought, how wonderful. So it was so important that then the pathway was aligned with those movements. But this is an important point. Once we ensure that the intention is good, and for Muslims, that's essential. Muslims are judged on their intentions. So the intention must be positive. But then there would be a weakness if there's a positive intention without the effort to manifest that intention on the planet. So that's what the model looks like. And thank you very much for engaging with it and just thinking aloud with me. I feel incredibly privileged to have this opportunity to share this thinking. This is the wonderful Raja. There's our book, Coaching in Islamic Culture. The process of writing this book, I learned so much. And you know, I learned so much about that faith, but I learned so much about coaching and what was important to me. I'd never tested what are the things that were kind of red lines for me when it came to coaching. And for me, that was choice. I was saying, if we're not respecting the choice of the learner throughout the process, then it's not coaching. So it was a tough thing to write. And there were points where I thought, we're not going to be able to write this. And we would meet regularly. This is us in Doha, Qatar. We would meet every 3 months because we couldn't do this virtually. And in terms of the research, of course, very early days, we've trialed it in different places, but we have done a qualitative study. And I do know there's a bias against qualitative research in some quarters, but I think with coaching, it's appropriate that we're coaching. The experience of coaching is so personal, so human, so subjective that I would argue for more qualitative research. But how do Emirati Muslims experience coaching? That's published in the Middle East Journal of Positive Psychology. We spoke at a conference about, and I'm like you, Andrew Machi, I'm not sure whether there is the need for an indigenous coaching psychology or indigenous positive psychology. but I think it's worth asking the question, and we did that, and we wrote that up. That's in the Coaching Psychologist. I'm very fortunate that there's a global charity that took the coaching for alignment, so not the religious version, but they took coaching for alignment because they said most of our people are passionate, they want to make a difference to the world, but they're saying that they don't feel aligned. So we've tried using that, and that's submitted to the International Journal of Evidence-Based Coaching and Mentoring. And the latest study I'm working on with a current student of mine is coaching Muslims on their intentions, and that uses the Irshad framework. And we're going to get some perceptions of Muslims who are coached in this way. So again, thank you so much for kind of engaging with this. I'm really interested in anything you have to say. I want to learn from others. I talked about two levels of alignment. One is alignment with my intentions. The other is alignment with the ecosystem or relationships around me. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity.